Welcome back to the running series. This is week 3. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition. And to help me, I brought my friend Matt Meredith. Some of you may recognize him from the running community. You may see him running around the streets of Tyler. Some of you may know him from other places, but he's a 5-time full Ironman finisher. He's qualified for the World Championships, both in the full and the half Ironman. He's finished 10 marathons, including the Boston Marathon, and lots of other races. He's done really well. Now, I brought him on today because he also has a background in athletic training. For those of you who don't know what that is, athletic trainers help athletes succeed in their sport in a lot of different ways. So they talk to them about nutrition, they talk to them about sports rehabilitation, injury prevention, and a lot of other things. So you've got a background in this topic that I think would be really useful for our friends that are running with us and training with us right now. Now, so you haven't always been fast and fit. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your story?
I always had these big goals to qualify for Boston, and I thought I was able to eat whatever I wanted and sleep whenever I wanted or not sleep, and still able to train and not get hurt. And finally in 2018 I missed qualifying just by seconds for Boston, and 2017 we had a kid in 16, and I had the full-on dad bod pushing probably 190 pounds, and then in 18 I'd lost probably about 30 pounds and really started focusing on the nutrition, the things that I'd learned in school, just with injury prevention and nutrition, and watching my diet more closely. Things started working out better, and ended up qualifying. So
that's awesome. So I know not all of you are looking towards big qualifications like Boston. For some of you, this is your first time to train for a race at all. That's totally okay. So we're going to go through a couple basics of where to start. Now, you used the word diet a couple times in your story. Let's talk about diet. While people are training, whether it's for a 5K or a longer race, what types of things with diet work and what doesn't work?
We really try to eat a whole food type of diet. As you know, I do pretty much most of the grocery shopping. My wife does all the meal prep, and we're big meal preppers, and I always have food available to eat. My job, the schedule can fluctuate, so if I don't have food, therefore I'll probably go long periods of time without eating. But with going to the grocery, we try to stay around the outsides of the store. That's one of the cold sections, things that last a week, 2 weeks max. Those are the things that are going to have less artificial ingredients in them. And don't get me wrong, we do eat some ice cream and some things from the inside, the boxes. But those are, our priorities are eating vegetables, plants, and try to really stick to like a 1-to-1 ratio of our proteins coming from plants and meats. So
yeah, lots of really good points there. So if you look at the outside of a grocery store, the outside, so the outer corners of the store, are going to have your 4 primary food groups. Everything in between tends to be more processed. So if you stick to the outside, not necessarily the inside aisles, you're going to do a lot better. He also talked about his wife meal prepping and sticking to the plan and then taking food with him. Really important concepts. If you don't have a plan, you're going to be less likely to succeed. If you don't take food with you during the day, you're going to be more likely to grab a bunch of junk food during the day. So lots of really good tips there. I really appreciate that. Now, as runners, I think we all fall into this next thing a little bit, if not a lot. So I hear this all the time. Man, I did a long run today. I can eat whatever I want. Can you really out-train about diet?
I thought I could back early on.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, so not really. I mean, I do a lot of exercising, and I eat a lot of food, and as I was losing weight and getting fit and doing more events and running and staying more consistent, people are always on me about eating more food, and I'm like, just come hang out with me.
Yeah.
You can see.
But it's about the food we're eating,
it's about
too.
the food we're eating, yes.
So you also talked a little bit in your initial comment about protein ratios. As you exercise, you don't necessarily need a huge amount of protein. So you said about a 1-to-1 ratio, talking about plant protein versus animal protein. The big key concept is you really don't need more than 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. In America, we already tend to overdo that. So you don't need to necessarily add extra protein to your diet. All right, speaking of food groups, we love to carb load as runners. Tell me a little bit about carb loading strategies. Talking primarily about training for a 5K. So carb loading before big long runs, carb loading before a race, or even just like pre-run meals for those training, just the training runs during the week.
Right. I mean, still with those, your typical 5K to 15K even, you're looking at maybe exercising for an hour to 2 hour max. You know, even if you're walk running that 15K, 2 hours is a pretty, I mean, even if you're walking it. So
Yeah.
The carb loading and everything is, you know, if we're working hard, you know, having a high heart rate for an extended amount of time, you obviously need to have your energy stores full. For the shorter distances, you might not focus on the carb loading so much. A lot of carbs, you know, especially like maybe the night before, can really just get, you know, sit in your stomach. They're not getting processed. For a lot of the bigger marathons, Ironmans, we're usually carb loading, or, you know, the 2 days before. You have a full 24 hours for that food to process. And then the night before, you're just wanting to keep it consistent. Eat, you know, very, very clean grains, cut out the fibers so there's not any stomach issues on race morning or during the race. I battled those plenty early on, so I learned that the hard way.
So do eat before your workouts, but a nice light meal consistency, I think, is key. So why don't you talk a little bit about practicing race day nutrition?
Yeah, just, you know, on some of the longer on your long runs once a week, or maybe before a hard tempo run or an interval run, if you're working on some speed work, you know, try that gel or whatever you are wanting to take for that energy during the run beforehand, just so you're, and stick with it, you know. A lot of times you go to the race and at the exhibit there's all these different new things, like don't change it up the day before a race.
Yeah, definitely don't try anything new on race day. So practice what you're going to do race day morning. Eat a consistent breakfast, like you said, for your long runs. That's a great time to practice. And then consistency with your pre-race meals too, the night before or even the couple days before your race, can be really helpful for avoiding those GI issues during races, which we won't get too far into those, but they're a very real thing. So avoid really high fiber fruits and vegetables. We do want those in your diet in general, but especially the night before a long run, the night before a race, definitely don't want to eat those. That's the time to eat the carbohydrates that are easier to break down, like your simple carbs, potatoes, pasta, rice, that kind of thing. So, all right, lots of really great tips. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your help. Now, today's word is balance. Balance is so important. Balancing plants and protein from animals when we're talking about eating the things that we love that may not be healthy for us, with all of the good things that are going to fuel our bodies to train. But you also need balance with work and rest. You need balance with your training. Make sure that you're finding the balance this week as you go through and work on your training. All right, so next week is our live event. I hope to see you guys out there in person. We're going to do our training together. And then afterwards, join us for a Q&A, which will be posted live on Facebook, and a little bit of breakfast afterwards. Thanks.